Yeah, hello, Robbie.
So, talk to me.
I hope it won't be too inhibiting. Is that the word?
It is a word.
Yeah, too much inhibition with a recording, but it's fine. I think.
Have a drink first, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so I was just looking for a part in your book that I wanted to address, but maybe okay. So I was reading your book One Step Path for probably the 6th or 7th time or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, so first thing is, I don't really understand why a lot of people that sort of reach your level, whatever. I mean, you write so well. I mean, do you have writing skills from before? It's really, it's like, how do you write like that?
I don't know. Like, how does anyone, right? Like a creative person, how does that happen, right? Like, where does it come from? People don't really know, right? Like, usually people just say, well, it comes through me, right?
Yeah. So, okay, so let me start off with, there's just this part. Some tears may well up in my eyes or something, because it did yesterday. So I wrote this down. This is in your book. And this is just so, it sounds like I'm sitting here just flattering you, but this is so, what's the word? Concise, and it's just so beautifully written. So I get totally moved by this quote. Okay, here it is. Once the path has been recognized, you will never be lost again. For you will always be only one step away from home. One step out, one step back. A million steps out, one step back. I mean, you should see my arms, it's just the hair standing up.
Yeah,
I'm
getting chills too. It's true.
Just so moved with that quote. It's just unbelievable. Look at me.
Yeah, I know.
It's just so, I mean, this book is just awesome. I can't understand why it hasn't stirred up more of a fuss. It's like I don't know if you read these legendary Hindu books like Ashtavakra Gita and Avadhuta Gita and these classics.
No, I haven't. I'm not very well read, to be honest.
Okay, maybe I send you those, because it sort of reminds me of those unknown writers, but like, what do you call them? These legends in Hinduism that, wrote these things. And it's like channeled directly from Shiva or something. And so this book gives me the same kind of feeling. That's why I never read a book 6 or 7 times. I haven't almost ever done that, because it's new every time. It's just unbelievable.
It's so compact, right? It's just like we've said before, that some of these, like, 2 sentences could take freaking a week to fully unpack themselves within your conscious, like the true meaning, right? Like, and I don't know where it comes from, right? I don't know. I'm just a creative person, and it just comes through somehow. And again, I don't understand it either. Like, I think a person has to be very, very ripe for this teaching. Like, you have to be very advanced or whatever, because I get the same thing. Like, sometimes I reread my stuff and I'm like, well, how the fuck did this come to me?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if people are going to see this or not, but I mean, it may sound a bit ridiculous. I'm sitting here claiming stuff like, you know, to you, who are the writer, saying stuff like this book is up there with the, you know, biggest, almost mythologized classics in the history of spiritual literature. So that's not a very bland, you know, a very pale statement to make. But I don't see you as a person, you know, the true teacher, the true guru, or whatever you want to call it, is more of a principle than a person. So to me, it doesn't really feel strange to say these things. It doesn't feel like, you know, flattering or anything, because, yeah, like I said to you, I don't see you as a person, more of a catalyst or a
Conduit.
Yeah, maybe, or a principle, a teaching, yeah, some kind of principle, and that's the meaning of guru, the original meaning. So, what else?
Well, I can't disagree. I can't disagree with you because.
Yeah, which in a way is even more ridiculous. But well, I mean, there we are.
Yeah, like imagine being me, right? Like I reread this stuff and I agree with you completely. It's like, well, this is one of the greatest spiritual texts that's ever been written. Like,
yeah, because it just is. So what are you gonna say?
Yeah, like anyone who's really like, you've been an ardent seeker your whole life, and you've done all of this advanced stuff and read, like you said, you've read stuff that I've never read, and you're not a crackpot. Like you're actually very, very sane and a very advanced seeker. And what's curious, though, to me, is how it isn't seen, right? Like, isn't that even more curious, even more interesting than the writing itself? Is that how people can't see it?
Yes. But I always had, I don't know, quite early on, or I mean, for at least many years, I've had this feeling that there will come somebody, you know, somebody will come out of the confusing mists of my seeking life, and that won't be a very famous or well-known teacher, or it will just be somebody quite unknown, and I will understand that this is it. I always, many years, I've had this feeling. And so now when I met you and this book, there's so much things in my life making sense. And I mean, early on in life, I told you once, I think, very early on, I must have been 5, 6 years old, I told my friends and my parents that I actually live in Canada. And wow. I think just to me, it was just the name. The name fascinated me, and that red maple leaf, you know, the flag. And I was very into ice hockey also. But I mean, why not Sweden, where I am from? And Sweden played Canada. But I told people I was 5, 6 years old. I'm actually living in Canada. My mother had to tell my friends, like, that's not true. And obviously it wasn't in a way, but my feeling was just, I was just in shock. Like, how can she say that? That's not true. And also, I also had this, throughout my entire life, a very contrarian sort of personality. Also for many years, I've been saying that the truth, whatever it is not a popularity contest or a majority decision. It's absolutely possible that one guy or woman claims that A is true and the rest of humanity will laugh at him or her, claiming that B is true. But there's nothing saying that B is true just because of the multitudes. And so I always have had that inside. So I was very suspicious of majority streamings, or what do you call it, majority vibes, or so also that from very early on. So it's almost like I kept getting these prophetic prophecies, or from the future, which is now, but sending messages back through time. And yeah, it's sort of, I don't know how this sounds to other people. I don't really care.
But this is real. Like this is an actual teaching that's actually had a dramatic effect on your life, right? Like,
oh yeah.
this is in your deepest level of your psyche, right? Like this is teaching has to affect your life, right? If it doesn't affect your life, then either you're not accepting it, or it's just not very good teaching.
Yeah. Feels like I have had 50 different things to talk about. I keep going over and over and over the book, and I think it feels like I'm going to read it 25, 30 times in many years to come or something. Because it's like almost like some kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tibetans, terma, terma, Terma. So terma is some hidden teachings, and there are different types of termas, mind termas, and so like spiritual treasures hidden within time and within the mind, and they can open up. And I'm not an expert on it, but this feels like a terma. It sort of unravels, and yeah, there's some terma that starts in Tibetan culture. It starts with, or the name maybe is the gift that keeps on giving. That's the title for it.
Yeah, so it's true that like specifically the number system, the number system as the model, the evolution of consciousness. I've had that. I've been working on that. Like I first publicly presented that in a little non-dual group like 12 years ago, right? Like this has been with me for a long time, and just especially since I moved out here in this magical place with this living in an Escher drawing, like it just blows, like it just expands my consciousness, and it seems like the creative energy here is off the charts, and I've just been, but this last year, it's really unfolding. It's unpacked, right? It's becoming more and more unpacked, and the fact that it's a message is kind of new to me, right? Like, okay, well, there's this thing, and it seems like maybe I came up with it, but it's not that way at all. It's nothing that I've created, right? I haven't created anything, right? And that's the difference between these guys with these theories, like conventional theories of everything, and philosophers and everything. Like, they're trying to come up with their own model, where I've kind of just observed and then adapted. But it's become very clear to me that the best way to describe what's happening is that this is a message. Like the number thing and the triune thing for sure is the message, right? Like it seems to fit the best way to describe it as such. That's been left within consciousness. And now it just happens that, and again, you don't have to go this way, but sometimes it does is that, well, by implication, Roy Dobson is the only person in the history of the history of mankind to properly interpret this message, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's all been, it's like I said in this last video that I made, it's all in front of us. Like, it's all, there's nothing really hidden, is there? Like, if anything, Maya's trying to hide stuff, but everything's just here. There isn't anything new to try to figure out.
Or you could possibly say, quite possibly you could say that it's hidden, but it's hidden everywhere.
Yeah,
or
it's hidden
in
right
the
out.
open. So that's why it's so difficult to see, because you come upon it all the time, basically. And it's very difficult for human beings to really see that which is commonplace everywhere. We have a great difficulty of seeing, and that's why there are famous people throughout history, seers and inventors, Edison, and all these, Plato, thousands of people like that, of course. They see what is already there. And, Michelangelo had a famous saying that he was a sculptor, and he used to say, "I'm just freeing the figure within the marble," and that's a beautiful.
David was in there, and he just let him out.
He sort of liberated the character within that block of marble.
Out of the big chunk of rock, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't know what the Tibetans would say. I don't know why I even talk about them, because this has a terma-like feeling to me. And the Lama in the Tibetan tradition might say, yeah, it is a terma, and this guy could open it, or it could blossom within your mind as a mind terma, for whatever reason. But I mean, all kinds of this happens to people. The Tibetan
is the new version of that a meme, right? Like it gets into your consciousness, and like a virus or a seed or something, and then it needs a gestation period. It seems like something this big, it takes a long time for the roots to get into consciousness. But with you, my friend, it finally is, right? Like the root is very deep. Like, I have gardens, and the grass, when they say grass roots, well, I get it, right? Because those grass roots can go down very, very deep, and it's very hard, right? Once they're in there for good. And that's what's happening with you and with a couple of others, but especially you. You're getting this, right? And that's the most important thing. Like you say, it's not about quantity, it's not about the amount of people that understand this, it's the depth to which individuals understand it.
And I mean, all this old stuff that is actually happening now with the Kali Yuga and all that, I mean, you would actually expect a gift like this to not be collected by multitudes of people. I mean, that would be expected, wouldn't it? How else?
Well,
it wouldn't be Kali Yuga if that wasn't the case. We would be in a completely different.
It's
almost like the feeling for me is almost like I came across this guy who was standing close to where I live, handing out fistfuls of gold, and people, for some reason, people can't see it and can't reach out their hands, and all I'm doing is saying, "Hey, are you actually giving that away?" And the guy, being you, saying, "Yeah, you want some fistfuls of pure gold?" And I just, sure, why not? And I keep going home and coming back to pick up more, because why not? Nobody else is fucking filling their pockets,
Well, because
so why the hell not?
Everyone's so complacent. One, it's Kali Yuga, so this is why I keep it couldn't be any other way. Like it only makes sense that very, very few are accepting this or can see it, can actually see it, right? They just can't see it. Like
No.
it's it's so amazing, because to me it's so completely obvious that but it's so tough, because it's when everyone is in a state of delusion. Well, how does a consciousness pull itself out of that, right? Like, how does, let's say, like, I just watched the movie Father, where Anthony Hopkins won the best actor, and it's about dementia, right? Like a elderly man is going through dementia and losing his identity, I guess, right? And his everything. Like, he's just, so is it possible for a person like that to actually stop that sliding into delusion and pull itself out, and then all of a sudden just be completely lucid, right? Like, how is that possible? How does a crazy person become uncrazy? Or is it always just a straight slide down into madness? Because that's where humanity's going, right? Like, it's and this is why it's so, there's part of me that knows that they're dream characters and that all that really matters is my enlightenment. But on the other hand, how could a person see what I see, like a literal hell approaching, and all this madness and just hell, right? Like, and not just be screaming from the rooftops, listen, I know the direct path. Like, I get all of this. I know why it's happening. I know how to well, I guess avoid it or transcend it. Like it's sometimes it's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I know. I mean,
You just,
I've actually,
like you say, I've got bars of gold I'm standing on the corner with bars of gold, and people don't think that it's gold, I guess. Or that I'm lying, or I've got some sort of ulterior motive behind it. So many different reasons for people to reject it, I guess.
I mean, yeah. Reading this book, then it's pretty obvious that an insane person could not in any way have written this. It's just absolutely no way.
Well, that's almost the point. I know, like, if a person is like on Twitter proclaiming himself to be the greatest philosopher of all time, well, either he's a fucking nutcase, or it's all tongue in cheek, right? It's like, or he's nuts, or he really is. Like, why not? Like, if a person is reading my stuff and they're outrageous claims, for sure, but if it's making sense, and the guy maybe doesn't sound like he's a lunatic, well, why wouldn't you follow that up? Like, maybe he actually does, just because 10 million other people have declared this and it's all been wrong, right? They are actually incorrect or just nut jobs. That doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means that it's highly unlikely. Right?
And you're back to that thing.
Averages, or like.
Yeah, you're back to the thing I was talking about, with the majority decision and that whole thing.
It's almost like people always need to follow someone else. Like, it always, like, it's about gravity. I think that's the more, yeah.
So if you picture, let's say you picture a big, what do you call them, big shopping mall. Are you there? The camera is lagging. Okay. So if you picture a huge shopping mall, and okay, so there's a fire and some smoke in one of the corners, and all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of people running one direction. So I think I have, for some reason, I've had this built into my system since a very young age. That always when I see that happening, the group mentality, the collective, going one way. They might be right, of course. There's no way of telling if, just in the moment. But my first reaction has always, since I was a kid, been something wrong with this. Why is everyone doing that? And the older I got, my first reaction is always suspicion. Because, I mean, that's also backed up by history. I mean, look at humanity. The majority is almost always wrong, as far as I'm concerned. And people don't like to hear that. I tried that out at work and stuff. Like, everybody knew that the Earth was flat and stuff like that. And that's the tiny revelation compared to this, right? That's a small thing. I mean, a cube-formed planet, a disk. Who cares? In a way, it's not that big a deal in a way, which also sounds crazy to say, of course.
Well,
but
not in a practical sense. Like, so what if it's
yeah,
round? Like, I still need to go get food and eat, right?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, like that's cool, but
Mm.
how does it affect my life?
Exactly. So if somebody were to say right now that the Earth is actually flat, the planet is flat, I would just go, yeah, maybe, who cares? I go to work with my car back and forth. It kind of looks flat. I mean, it kind of looks flat to me. I don't have the daily experience of moving around a fucking ball. You know what I mean? It's not my daily experience. So in a way, I don't really care. But I mean, imagine the absolute first people who stared out at the sea or something and realized, hey, this isn't a flat disk, this is a round thing. Look at the horizon and stuff like that. I mean, imagine those people and imagine their dilemma. I mean, it was obviously dangerous coming out with that information, and these people must have known that. And not only dangerous, but quite a shocking thing to say to your neighbors and friends, right?
Well, you'd sound like the crazy person.
Of course.
Right? Like, yeah.
Of course. And I mean, all during, and there's so many things right now that, I mean, there's a saying even, I don't know where it's from, to be sane in an insane world will look like insanity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Of course. I mean, in the order, what was that other saying? In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Danish, old Danish, like it was a writer. He wrote. Is it called The Naked Emperor in English? Maybe.
Yeah. Is that a Danish?
Yeah, H.C. Andersen is his name.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I've used that analogy
Okay.
many times in my some of my videos. Yeah.
Okay. So are you off of maybe that? Okay, maybe it's world known. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. The emperor he's the emperor, so no one can tell him that he's naked, right? So everyone just yeah. That's exactly it. Like,
Yeah.
but it's not the emperor; it's the empire. It's right. It's everything. Everything is like that.
Yeah.
But no one wants to be the first one to say it. First of all, I think that literally people can't see it. I think literally people are not seeing the reality of the emperor that is naked. They literally see clothes on the dude, right? Which is so wild, right? Like that, and that's what makes it so obvious. Like, that's why if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out, because I'm that kid that can see like what.
I mean, this is a pretty what's the word even? This is a pretty huge thing because it's about everything we know.
Everything. All like it's.
But if you,
We've
I
gone
mean,
completely
scale,
the wrong way.
but
Yeah,
if you
like it's.
scale, but if you scale this down to something much smaller, which I mean, in many ways is a big thing. I mean, I just saw yesterday a thing, like people's reaction, they can't take things in anymore. Like we have a thing going on, and I saw a video of it. It's okay, so during COVID, we have a chamber of decision making, a government, like a chamber, is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's supposed to be 349 members in that sort of chamber making decisions on behalf of the government or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So 349 people from different political parties are in there. They're making the big decisions about central banks or whatever, in the country. So Sweden has this, of course. And during COVID, they took a huge decision about this Agenda 2030. And it turned out that 22 of these people voted yes to Agenda 2030. Only 22 people, so that's about, if my math is correct, it's about 6%. Okay.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So 6%, by any stretch of the imagination, is hardly a majority, no matter how you twist and turn it. But still, this huge democratic decision for the Swedish people, this got through as a decision, right? The vote was yes, with only 22 people. So there's this journalist, this sort of not that famous, a bit underground character, this journalist. So he decides to dig into this. So he calls up, and it's recorded. He calls these people up and asking to talk to these people. And so, I mean, it's a huge, it's such a deception. So I've been sending this a bit to people, and but people hardly react anymore. They can't take it in. And this is on a much smaller scale of what you're talking about. But you see this happening everywhere. It's like people can't take things in, or they can't
No, there's
decipher.
I call it discernment, right?
Yeah,
They're
discernment. Yeah.
unable to discern information on that. There's information at different levels, right? There's entertainment, and then there's actual information that may be important, right? I guess. But it's become all entertainment, I believe, right? It's just whatever gets an emotional response at the time, that's all it's being used for. And then there's no repercussions in the physical world. It's just, well, I'm just going to get mad, or I'm just going to, right? Oh, that's terrible. What's the next news item, right? Oh, that's terrible. That's nonsense. It's horrible. What's next on YouTube, right? Like it's just, it's all just there to manufacture emotional responses at the time, but it doesn't get in, right? It doesn't.
No, because I mean, it's about making your mind move somewhere, It's about making movements for the mind, or just get it to move somewhere, anywhere. Just it doesn't stand still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean,
So there's a reason for all of these myths, right? And all of these legends and stories and gods and goddesses. And I believe that I'm Kali. Like Kali comes to destroy the world, right? Kali destroys all. And that's what's happening with this message, is it's destroying everything. right? It's all systems of thought are being exposed as being the deception. Like the gravity of it is immense, right? Because it's, once you
Which,
realize what's being said is that it's all been wrong the whole way. Like Ramana just said it so succinctly and bluntly, but now it's worse, right? And I believe that it's not because in Christ's time, like I remember reading an anthropologist saying that 100 years ago, the average human had only 5,000 thoughts per day. And that only makes sense because it was a far simpler time. It's like, well, you get up in the morning and you say, well, I got to go collect the eggs, or, you know, I got to go weed the garden or whatever, right? It's a very simple, it's not complex. So if you take that back 2,000 years, well, the teaching wasn't so much, well, as you got to stop your thoughts, right? Because it wasn't so prevalent. That's why the stories and the metaphors and the analogies are all like different, right? Like I'm the son and the father, right? Like it's all different metaphors. But now I think it's very prescient, right? It's very important because that's the main issue now, is that human consciousness is totally mesmerized by thought process and symbol. So I think this is the most prescient teaching right now is, listen, you really got to just stop the thoughts, right? Like it's that's the thing. And of course, our thoughts are everything, right? Thought has created everyone's lives and we just accept it to be the norm.
of course, because that's the thing. I've been saying it for many years, but in other sort of contexts. But wait, what was it? I'm a little bit muddy in the head because I had a cold this week, so it still hasn't really gone out the system. But what was it I was going to say? Yeah, but there you have it again. Like people can't see that that anything normal is unnormal when everybody's doing it. We can't see it. It's like looking at a bunch of trees from a distance. It's a forest. You can't really, you can't pick out anything. It's just a huge, big bunch of green, basically. So there have always been individuals who have been able to decipher and distill within something like that. And you're obviously one of the top guys in that field, and I also have had this ability for many years. And why some people can see things coming from a distance while others, they can't even see it while it's shoved up in between their legs, basically.
It's a vision. Like I equate it very much to being able to see accurately what's happening, right? And the greater your vision, the more comprehensive your vision, I guess, is you can see a greater wholeness of it all. And yeah, like that's what, like, in a way, it's prophecy, right? Like this model is prophecy, right? Like it's in its most basic form, it requires interpretation. Now, of course, it sounds like a lot of crazy stuff that's happened before, like the Mormons, right? Like he gets the special the special spectacles, and this lizard talks to him, and he's the only one. Like, okay, but that's crazy. But it's got validity to it, right? So, but everyone, what happens is that if someone hears me talking about that, well, they think I'm Joseph Smith immediately, right? Like, well, he's just another one of these crazy guys. And it's easy to go there because the proof, right? Because if you go statistically, the odds are that I'm just another one of these crazy guys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But unfortunately, statistics don't have really anything to do with reality. It's after the fact, right?
Just
It's a
like
lagging indicator.
yeah, just
You
like
know?
yeah, just like historically, the majority decisions on what's right and true it doesn't hold any water, or it doesn't, how do you say it? It doesn't bear any weight historically when you in hindsight, you know. Otherwise, the Earth would still be flat, and all these things. And I mean, look at us. The world today. I mean, the people in the know, they basically know that there isn't such a thing as uh, a solid physical world anymore. We basically know that, right?
Yeah, but they refuse to go that way, right? Like
Exactly.
it doesn't
Exactly.
matter how many, like if someone, again, the analogy of being in a cult, a cult member, no matter how crazy it seems to an outside person that isn't in the cult, within the cult, that's your life. Like that is the reality. And we've seen, normal people can be programmed to just believe the craziest shit.
Mm.
And what if all of humanity is in that state? Right? Like obviously, and then again, we need to step back and have an objective view of how fucked up we are.
Mm.
Right? Like I heard that 70% of Americans are on some sort of medication and
Mm.
40% are on at least two. Like what, how is this normal and healthy? Like we can't even I ask people to just sit in a chair for an hour and not do anything and try not to think. And how many people actually do it? One. And the people that do it for a while, they might just go, oh, well, it's a curiosity, but then I get to just go watch TV again. Like it's just,
Okay, so I have I don't know, I saw this before our call. This is a friend of mine put up on Facebook. He's saying it's an article about the anti-depression medicine of the future, and it's an article about psilocybin mushrooms. So this guy David is called David. He's saying here that this is what our population needs. 1 million Swedes right now are eating chemical antidepressives like SSRI, which are just closing down the thinking and feeling spectra. So that article, I was reading that before our call, and now you, addressed that. It's like these things are normalized. It's normal. People can't see that the root cause of it, or the actual suffering, is the realm of thought, of thinking. That's
yeah, right.
what's leading us there. And
We keep treating the symptoms rather than getting to the cure. And again, that just kicks the can down the road. And all of this needs to be addressed eventually. And human consciousness we're right on this precipice of this. Oh, it's just I can see it all being constructed as we speak in front of our eyes, and then the species is going to go extinct, and this is when, like, again, it just applies. The model actually fits very well with what's going on, right? Like when does artificial intelligence become sentient? Right? Like there's a lot of discussion about this right now. Like a lot of people are saying that it already is, right? That there already is an artificial intelligence that's sentient.
wow.
Yeah. Like what if all of a sudden, like this is what it says, is that when artificial intelligence actually becomes sentient, that's when you, like whoever is watching this, looks out of the camera rather than into it and takes itself to be the hardware and the software of the system. So this is what I just rewatched one of my videos yesterday that I haven't watched in quite a while. And I said, so body, mind, spirit, right? Hardware, software, spirit, same spirit. You see what I mean, right? Like, so the mistake that we take, the mistake that everyone makes when talking about the hard problem of consciousness is that we assume that the body is conscious, but it isn't, right? Like what I'm suggesting is going to happen is that human consciousness, what consciousness that takes itself to be human, will be entering the digital realm and will be taking itself to be the hardware, right, which is the body, and the software, which is the mind. That will be their new identity, right? The new ego. And that will be the sentient in artificial intelligence. But that's exactly what's happening now. It's the exact same thing, except we're thinking that we're the body and the mind. So it doesn't matter whether it's organic or technical, right? Or mechanical. It doesn't matter if it's organic or mechanical, is that it's the
So it's
same
like,
system.
so it's almost like, okay, so if you take that metaphor of the age-old being thrown out of Eden thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was knowledge and being, the being and the knowing of being, let's say, in the beginning. And then we sort of, okay, we moved out and then started to get the idea of dualism. So we were this thing here.
Well, that's
Mind,
the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge is exactly, right, the knowledge of good and evil. So that is the arising of duality. And then the naming, right? The naming of everything. Well, that's the duality right there, right?
man gave name to all the animals. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, that's exactly duality, right? Because now there's this other thing that has a name to it.
But do you think, so we sort of, do you see it as, do you think it's like a movement of going out on more and more abstract identities, kind of, or more and more less and less solid identities? So first there was infinite being, and then this body mind thing. So I'm the person amongst other people in the physical world, and forgetting the zero or the potential or the father aspect, if you will. And then a step out from that would be a thought-based identity, not even not a physical form. And then so it's like a pendulum, a swinging pendulum, until you realize it's all a divine game started by you as awareness in the beginning. I mean, it's difficult because I have to use words here, but it's, what do you say to that?
Yeah, it's hard to know. So
Speculative, maybe.
it's a it's a good. I think that the tree of knowledge is basically the first thought. That is a story about the introduction of the I thought into consciousness, right? So this is my story. Is that so there's this game, right? Like there's in as progress is made in this game, because you've forgotten self, right? Just like when someone's playing a video game, you lose sense of the three-dimensional realm, and you're basically you're so involved in the two-dimensional realm that you lose awareness temporarily of this.
Mm.
So as progress is made in the game, you become more and more self-aware. You kind of come out of that haze, like it's like, and the biggest point when human consciousness arose, right? I believe that is the point where somehow half of we realize that we're not the body, right? So that's what happened, is that through this evolution of consciousness, progress was made and we realized that we weren't the body. All right. So all of a sudden, I realized it's like looking into the mirror and saying, that's me, but I'm not that. So we realized that we're not the body. And at that moment, the collective that was that, half of it, and I don't know how you quantify this, but I believe that half of it became enlightened and just is chilling as God now. But the other half is us, right? The other half of consciousness that didn't realize who they are, what they really are, and ended the game. We're still here. And
for second half.
What's that?
Still here for second half of the game or something.
Right, like we're the part that decided to keep playing the game, I guess. But if you know what you are not, but you don't know yet what you are, well, that's a pretty tenuous situation, right? Like that's where we are at. So all you can do is project another illusion, right? All you can do. So if it's a relative, in a way, this is a relative form of existence because I know I exist relative to my senses, right? Relative to the physical world, I know I exist. But once that's no longer the physical, that's no longer fundamental reality, then you still need to set up this relative form of existence somehow, right? So you need to have something relative to the physical realm, right? You always need to have duality, right? So
well,
now it's swinging, yeah, because the physical realm intuitively has been, we know that it's not fundamental reality. We've known this since we've had human consciousness, since the I thought.
well, wait. When you're saying we have got to the point that we understand we are not our bodies, are you talking about humanity as a whole? Most people definitely think they are their mind and bodies.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is that intuitively at the deepest level of our psyche, that is our level of awareness, right? Like we have this level of self-awareness where we know we're not the body, right? And that's what distincts us from animals, is that animals believe that they're the body, right? 100%. But we know we're not the body, but what the fuck are we? Right? So that is the introduction of the thought realm. So if I'm not my body and I haven't realized that I'm the zero, right? The potential, the source from which all this arises, then I need something relative to that. Because what's relative to all of this is always the zero, right? That's what it is. That's what zero is, more like the page on which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is written on, right? That's more like what it's representing. It's not even part of the system. It's the potential for that. It's the frame of reference upon which that is being focused against, in a way. So I'm kind of fumbling through this, and it sounds more complicated than it really is. But what I'm saying is that human consciousness knows we're not the body. So consciousness has just projected another illusion to have it relative to the physical realm. And now Maya's just playing those two against each other. And this is the mind body, the which is more fundamental, right? mathematics or physics or thought or the physical realm, or right, like mind or body, which one is the fundamental one? Well, that's the trick, is that now we're not trying to find the source. It's a Ponzi scheme, right? So it just, well, this is fundamental, well, no, this is fundamental, no, this one is, no, this one is, right? So when when you're focused on two different things like that, well, spirit gets completely ignored. Right? So when people are engaging in the screen, let's say that a lot of people, they just shift information around on the screen, right? So when you're doing that, when you're focused on thoughts, when there's that system going on with symbols creating thoughts in your mind, and you're looking at the screen, well, while you're doing that, there's no way that you can be self-aware, right? Like it's again, Maya's perfect playing of this game is that she's got us duped, and we're so focused on this interaction like this, is that we're not focused on this.
It's the world of somebody said the world of Maya is a hall of mirrors.
Yeah,
reflecting like each other in the infinity.
That's the analogy that I use, is that the mind is one mirror and the body is the other mirror. And it seems as though they're causal, right? It seems as though if you look, because they're mirrors, right? So they reflect each other, but they're actually not causal. This is what's so crazy, is that it seems like math is affecting this and this is affecting the physical realm, and it seems like they have a causal relationship to each other, but it's the same process, but it's over here and over here, right? The same process is generating all the thought realm and the mathematics, and it's also simultaneously spinning out the physical realm. It's the same process, and that's why it's the same process running in conjunction, and that's why it seems like they're causal. I don't know if this is making any sense, but what's actually causing all this, what actually is the source or the causal effect, is where you put your awareness, right? That's, so again,
everything gets real by order of by magnified attention or something, right?
Yeah, like wherever you place your attention, that is what's going to appear the most real at that time.
Like I remember when I was about 20 years old, I had this friend of mine, he was a bit of a peculiar guy. So he made an experiment. He just picked a random girl at school, and his experiment was that he wondered if he could make himself fall in love with her, just a random girl walking past. So I said, what kind of silly experiment is that? Why would you do a thing like that? I'm just interested in how I work and how things work. So he gave that a lot. He gave a lot of attention to this, and not entirely surprisingly, he fell deeply in love with this girl. So because he understood intuitively that he just need to, focus his attention on this experiment. And then he had a hard time getting out of the experiment because
that's it, right? Is that there's a certain degree of pretending, of acting that goes along. You have to be willing to participate in the game.
Yeah,
and that means that you're acting. Like,
it's tiresome. It takes a lot of energy. Look at people are really tired out there, beat up, and and they don't understand. Of course, okay, you can say society and the draining of family and kids and work and everything also, of course, but the most draining energy is probably, keeping the person and the identity alive. Sorry?
Yeah. keeping up the facade, right? Like just always keep doubling down, like.
Yeah. So I mean, there's this guy I followed. Maybe you know him, non-dual guy called Tony Parsons, an English guy.
Yeah.
So I was a bit of a follower. He would hate the fact that I call him that I say follower, but I was on his retreats when I was younger.
Okay.
And wow, now I lost completely what I was going to say. What were you talking about? Oh.
Well, Tony is one of those guys who you just don't do anything, right? Like there's nothing to do. Right? Isn't there like no practice?
Yeah. Because there's no one. There's no one.
Yeah,
So who would?
It's like, well, then just shut up. Like if you've got nothing, if there's no practice and there's no teaching, then just shut up.
No.
Go away.
No. Yeah, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, his retreats were great. We had parties and drinking, and there were no limits. I mean, there were no sort of rules or anything. It was great fun. I love Tony.
Well, again, then you might as well just call it life then. Like it's not right.
Yeah, in a way, but no. The point wasn't to debate him or he's a friend of mine these days. It wasn't really. He's great fun. It's not about that. I was gonna say something about something he used to say. I forgot it now. Never mind. Probably wasn't important because I just completely forgot it. I just absolutely.
That's a slippery slope, though. When you say that there's no practice, like I don't agree with that at all. I just don't agree with that at all. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. Maybe
yeah, I think too. Then you can talk about this free will stuff and choice and stuff like that. But anyway, the point wasn't to bring him up. I could have just said this guy or whatever. But yeah, I also completely forgot what it was about. It's the cold in my head still. What else? Can we take like a few minutes break?
Yeah, for sure.
I had something cooking and stuff.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll take a break. I know how to pause this thing.